Thank you for joining us today. In our continuing series about Sage 100C manufacturing, today we're going to talk about using service agreements. Our agenda includes topics: service agreement maintenance, preventive maintenance generation, plus service agreement invoice generation. So let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to start looking at service agreement maintenance. So here I am in Sage 100C. Let's go ahead and go to the manufacturing module. And under field service, we're going to take a look at service agreement maintenance. So this is where you can set up agreements with your customers on maintaining equipment and things like that. So I'm going to do the binoculars lookup and just select an existing service agreement for us. And you can see here on the header tab, we can define a start date and an end date for this particular agreement. Every time we build this agreement, the build through date will be updated. Plus, we have an option to specify service levels. So we've defined in setup options that we have 3 service levels: platinum, gold, and silver. Now, there's 2 kinds of work tickets that can be created from these. One is a service work ticket, which is field service, and we specify a work ticket class for that. And the other kind of work ticket that we can create is a preventive maintenance work ticket. And so we can designate what work ticket class is used for that. And then we have other things like terms code, salesperson, and tax schedule that'll end up on the work tickets. We go to the billing tab, we can define how this agreement is going to get billed. So under billing type, we have 3 different options. Fixed price means that when this gets billed, whatever work we've done in terms of labor and or materials is not going to matter. It's just going to be billed at a fixed price. Time and materials, as the name implies, whatever time we spend on this ticket is going to be billed separately along with parts that would be billed. Now, the interesting one here is prepayment, because if you set it up as a prepayment billing type, then what happens is the contract amount is prepaid, and what Sage 100C manufacturing does is prorate that contract across the terms of the contract based on the billing frequency or the billing cycle, and it posts future general ledger postings to pull money from deferred revenue into revenue in the future. So the initial GL posting is a credit to a deferred revenue account, and then there are subsequent postings that debit the deferred revenue account and in turn then credit the deferred revenue account. So as you can see, you specify which general ledger account number you want to use for the deferred revenue. Now let's go to the equipments tab, and this is the equipment if you're tracking it, and this has to be set up as an equipment asset as we talked about in our last session. And we've defined this information here. Now this particular equipment has detail associated with it. So we're going to open this up, and you can see there's kind of 2 things going on with this particular piece of equipment. Let's expand the window a little bit. So let's take a look at this one. So this is a 3-month cycle, and the billing type here is fixed. So even though the billing cycle may say something else on the summary or on the main tab, it's really this billing cycle that's going to matter when it creates the work ticket. So as you can see here, we have a fixed billing type. Standard number of hours is 1 and the rate is 25, which means it's going to create a work ticket to bill $25. Now for fixed billing type, it's going to automatically check the box for us that says labor is covered. What this means is labor is included in this billing. So in other words, it doesn't matter how many labor hours we bill against the work ticket, it's still going to bill 1 hour at $25. Parts may or may not be covered. So since this is unchecked, parts are not covered as part of this contract. So any parts that we use against the work ticket and will become billable. There's also an option to have separate preventive maintenance tickets created here. So for each one of these, you can have a separate ticket that's created on the sales order. So when we generate the work ticket, it's a line-based work ticket, and we can have different work tickets on the sales order. And if we check that box, each one of these would end up on a separate one. If we don't check the box, they'd be consolidated. Preventive maintenance type, they can either be based on continuous, one-time, or seasonal. The basis can be time or metered. The metered option means that you actually go read a meter, and reading the meter would then determine when the preventive maintenance needs to be done. And then we have a work ticket template out there called PM-clean for this line, and we have another work ticket template called PM-expect. So just like other work ticket templates, when the work ticket is created, it's going to use those templates in the creation of the work ticket. So lots of options going on here. Let's go ahead and accept this. And we'll accept this. I'll go back to the billing, just make sure I haven't changed this back. So I'll change that back, go fixed price. Back to our agenda, the next thing we're going to look at is preventive maintenance generation. So we're going to go ahead and go into preventive maintenance generation. So I'm going to click that option. And it's going to tell me some things here. It's going to tell me my next sales order number is going to be S11. The work ticket date is going to be 6/30. The selection date is 6/30. Now the selection date has functionality on which work tickets are to be created based on the kind of contract and the frequency of the service, those kinds of things, and you'll see that in a moment. Now I'm just going to go ahead and preview this. And we're going to see two reports. We're going to see a generation listing report that tells me it's going to create a work ticket for this. And then once I close this, it's going to also show me a rejection listing report that's going to show me which ones were rejected and why. So you can see here that we have the next scheduled work ticket date for this, or service date for this one, is in 2018, and I'm doing this generation as of 6/30/2017. It's not going to create a work ticket for this. Same thing on this line. For this make to stock, its next generation or scheduled date is July 17, 2017, is later than 6/30, so it's not going to do that one either. So I'll go ahead and close that, say yes, and you'll see that it only created that one work ticket that was on the first screen there. Since it created the work ticket, we should have a sales order. So let's go into sales order entry and call that up and take a look at it. So you can see there's the sales order, S11. You can see the work ticket class is PM for preventive maintenance. And let's go to the lines, and you can see that the item code is /maintenance. The description is preventive maintenance. There is a work ticket, and our unit price is $25. And that was our rate. Remember, 1 hour at $25. The item code comes from the work ticket class. So if we go to work ticket class maintenance in Sage 100C manufacturing, we would see the default item code is /maintenance. Let's go ahead and drill into this work ticket. And remember, this work ticket came from a template. So this work ticket has the header step, as they all do, just kind of defining what's going on. And then it has an actual step that we would post to. And this step has some information, but as you can see in this case, there are no default or required parts. We obviously haven't posted anything, so there's no labor or anything else. So once this work ticket has been created, just like any other work ticket, it could be scheduled. So if we accept out of this and we go back to Sage 100C manufacturing, go to the service dispatch board, you can see the work ticket listed here, and we can right mouse click and schedule it and just drop it into our schedule. for whatever technician we want. And then, as we talked about last time, going through, or the time before, how to handle the scheduling and billing to these work tickets, we just kind of go on from normal from here. And then we can bill it out as normal as well. So once again, any parts that are added to it in billing will be billed separately, but the labor is included in the $25. The next thing we're going to talk about is service agreement invoice generation. Let's go back to our service agreement maintenance screen. What I'm going to do here is go to the equipment tab here, and I'm going to change the billing type to prepaid. And let's go ahead and do the billing cycle of quarterly. So the option for using service agreement invoice selection will only generate invoices for those service agreements that have a type of prepaid. So we have our invoice date here, our cycles that we can select, and I just set this up for the cycle as quarterly, and we'll go ahead and preview this. And you can see it's going to select that service agreement for billing. Now the billing amount is $100. And what it's going to do is bill $100 to deferred revenue, and then for each month after that is going to break that up. So we'll go ahead and generate this invoice. Now this is kind of interesting because all of the other integrations for Sage 100 manufacturing are in sales order. This is an exception. This actually uses accounts receivable invoicing, not sales order invoicing, although the invoicing is all done in Sage 100C manufacturing. It's going to use a miscellaneous item code that must be set up to be able to be used in accounts receivable. And I'll show that to you. So if I go back to my service agreement, call this up, you can see that we said that we're going to use this code /SC1, Service Agreement Billing Code. Well, if I go to Common Information, Miscellaneous Item Maintenance, and we'll do a lookup here, and we'll look at SC1, you can see that this miscellaneous item has been set up to be able to be used in accounts receivable, not sales order. So that's what's required. But the invoicing is all done in Sage 100C manufacturing, not in accounts receivable. The other requirement here is you cannot be using accounts receivable batch entry for this. So let's go to service agreement invoice maintenance. You can see here, there's the invoice that it created. We look at the lines, you can see it's one service agreement for $100. That's because my rate was 50 and we're billing 2 quarters. So that's $100, and there it is, plus sales tax. And then we can print the invoice, but let's go ahead and update this invoice. So there's my posting date. I'll go ahead and print the invoice journal, and there it is. So there's my $107 invoice. If I scroll down, you know, standard recaps and other reports, deferred revenue. Okay. So let's go ahead and close that and update that. Now what gets interesting is the daily transaction register. We'll go ahead and print that. So as you can see, for today, June 30th, we're going to have a debit to accounts receivable, but we're going to credit the deferred revenue account here. And then for each period after that, for each month through the terms for the next quarter, it's going to debit the account I defined as my deferred revenue, happens to be customer deposits, and go ahead and credit revenue. So it's going to do these journal entries for me automatically. So we're not going to recognize the revenue here until the subsequent months. We're not recognizing the revenue at the beginning of this contract. So the customer pays us for this contract to go for the next quarter. We're not going to recognize the revenue until those months go by. Let's go ahead and close that. So let's review our agenda. So we talked about where we go in to put in our service agreement and creating those service agreements and the various attributes of those agreements. We talked about preventive maintenance generation. So one of those service agreements has preventive maintenance. We're going to go ahead and create work tickets for that, which allows us to bill the customer based on the parameters for this on the service agreement, but also post costs and labor, material, those kinds of things. And then we also talked about if we have a service agreement that is prepaid, how we can generate the invoices for that. As always, you can find us on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn. Our website is www.nimsassociates.com, and you can always contact us at erp@nimsassociates.com or call 877-454-3200 extension 6346. Thank you for your time today.